Alright, I suppose I should probably start off by telling you who I am. My name is Shawn David Schwartz. I was born October 18th, 1980 in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. I'm a homeless rights and human rights activist. I stand up for everybody. I don't care if you're black, white, female, male. There are a lot of people in a lot of different groups that I stand up for. There was a poem written by a man in Germany about the war, about how they locked up all of the socialists, and he didn't care because he wasn't a socialist. Then they locked up all the Jews. He didn't care because he wasn't a Jew. And when they came for him, there was nobody left to speak up for him. There is racial profiling in Boulder, Colorado, but it's not what you think. See, there are certain things that you can take to a jury if it ever makes it to a jury, but it won't because they're homeless for the most part. One of those things is the assumption of poverty. This is why police come after you. They're trained at every police academy in America how to prevent themselves and their county or their particular department from being sued. That means you have to go after people who you assume don't have the money to defend themselves, don't have the money for a lawyer. And then their fellow officers refuse to press criminal charges against their fellow officers. This prevents evidence from being shown, and then you have to get a civil lawyer, which you don't have the money for. Meanwhile, they lock you up in the jails, and in the jails, you don't have access to lawyers. You have a public pretender who can't do her job, and most of them are female, by the way. She can't do her job because she has such an enormous caseload. So if she's going to help somebody out and do her job, she's going to do that in the cases of people who have kids first and foremost. She will trade the rights of a homeless person or several homeless persons to get charges dropped for a single mother who's selling heroin or methamphetamines to try to keep her kids fed because of the state of our economy. Meanwhile, with all of the police eating up all of the money and all of the resources to try to incarcerate homeless people because it makes them look good and makes them look like they're doing their jobs. Hey, look at all the criminals we busted last year. We busted 10,000 criminals in our county. Meanwhile, 8,000 of those people are the same person you're arresting over and over and over again for petty offenses. Offenses that are only illegal because they don't live in a house. Now, I was a human rights activist, and for years and years, nobody listened to me because I was homeless. And I spoke out about how we are treated. There's a video of a black man who's getting the homeless treatment, and people are all up in arms because he was picking up garbage in his own house and saying he was racially profiled. No, he looks homeless. Now, my case with Boulder, after Natalie disappeared, I was asked by Detective Rogers of Adams County to go to Boulder, where he would bring me my computer the next day. Now, I was fine with them keeping my computer as long as they needed to. They said they just needed the hard drive. They were going to copy my hard drive and give me my computer back. To this day, they have not done so. I've had over 20 excuses why they have not and will not, including it needs to be signed off by Joseph Lopez's lawyer. However, now I have warrants out for my arrest. This is for speaking out against officers and being framed for crimes that I didn't commit, ultimately resulting in me having to commit crimes to force that evidence to be seen, and they didn't allow it. Now we're going to start off with Boulder County. In Boulder County, the things that they did to that black man, they do daily to homeless people. I myself, along with a man by the name of Donald McNeese, have stood in front of police officers who were trying to murder a dog. I'll be goddamn, that ain't gonna happen. Now, I hurt my back moving out of a shop that I was renting on 75th and Arapahoe. This is after a flood out there, and a fire out there, and people out there stealing my things, and a guy going out there and getting into my storage facility and playing video games that are in my shop at a time that he wasn't supposed to be there, let alone ghetto blasting his computer playing video games. That was my birthday in 2015. I spent my birthday moving. I injured my back moving a gun lathe that I had converted, and by the way, I have another one. But I had converted this gun lathe over to make World War I aircraft engines in miniature. Because of me speaking out against the Boulder police, and they could never get anything on me, they did frame me on 2 separate occasions. One of them was for drug paraphernalia for a marijuana pipe that wasn't mine. The second occasion was framing me for theft by receiving, because I bought a computer. The public pretenders wouldn't do their job. They spent more time trying to send me into a panic attack than anything else. That woman's name is Kate Harold, and she is a public pretender in Boulder, Colorado. Now, if somebody in a house is arrested, there is a chance that they are guilty, but there's also a very good chance that the charges will be dropped. If you're homeless, chances are pretty good that you were locked up for a petty offense or not committing a crime at all. You were just framed for one because it's easy to frame you. And I spoke out about this for years. On more than one occasion, the police assaulted somebody and then arrested all of the witnesses because all the witnesses were homeless. Officer Keith Steinman, you're going to hear this name a lot if you want to actually get into the Boulder police. Officer Keith Steinman literally is a Nazi. He pulls Nazi BS all the time, actually drops the N-bomb frequently. He's profiled Mark Swanigan for being black and homeless. We call the charge black in Boulder, the Bib Law. It's illegal to be black in Boulder. However, it's even more illegal to be homeless. They'll come after you for being homeless. Natalie, when I say she's my hero, I mean it. I had an autistic meltdown after being assaulted on repeated occasions after I hurt my back. Being threatened and harassed by police because I couldn't walk a block. Did they ever actually arrest me during that period of time? No. They didn't have to. They just had to keep me from getting sleep until I went fucking crazy. And because of my back injuries, it was even worse. Now, a lot of people that were friends of mine just became Facebook friends because I couldn't travel to the places where they were to go see them. I had to worry about my backpack. Natalie Marie Bollinger came to my rescue. That little girl, the one who was shot in the head. Now, they had a misunderstanding in Virginia, and those girls outright lied. And there was nothing I could do about it. The police would not take my report in Virginia about what was happening. They took me to the hospital instead. They refused to arrest me, believe it or not. I wanted them to arrest me, so they had to take my report, because at the time I was told that in Virginia, if you get arrested, they have to allow you special reparations. That's actually not true. Now, they took me to the hospital, and they put me there on my own accord. They didn't arrest me because, first of all, I didn't break the law. It's not illegal to break down in the middle of the road. It's not illegal to honk your horn. Now, the slander that started there, first of all, they claimed that I stalked them, and I didn't. And I wasn't allowed to even make a report about this. Second of all, they claimed that I threatened their family, which I did not. So that's slander as well. But this slander wasn't just slander like, all right, well, we're just not going to talk to this guy because we think he's a scum. No. They lied to somebody named Matty Boa, who is a drug dealer in Boulder, Colorado. Who did Natalie Marie Bollinger rescue me from? the Boulder Police Department. The very same people who, after her death, let me tell you about this. Prior to her death, I had spoken to several officers trying to get them to take a report on the situation, as well as officers in Nebraska, because I had been repeatedly threatened and harassed by people who are known predators. Known predators. So, when Natalie disappeared and I went to Boulder as I was asked, my name had been slandered across social media and across the actual media, creating a situation where I was being assaulted by the general public and had no safe place to go. Meanwhile, I was trying to help the investigators in Natalie Marie Bollinger's death case. At first, it was just supposed to be a missing persons thing, and I was hoping that they'd find her. But I was pretty sure that she was dead. I was hoping beyond hope that she wasn't. Now, because of police refusing to do their jobs, I had to try to get a hold of Natalie Marie Bollinger, Maddie Boa, and Alicia Bollinger, known drug dealers. And their words were worth more than mine because, well, they're pretty, right? Maddie Boa planned the trip with me, but she was on probation for what? She got busted selling methamphetamines. Now, from the 1st of January until the 6th of January, Boulder police took part in threatening, harassing, and intimidating me almost every single day on multiple occasions. And that whole period of time is extremely fuzzy for me because of all the mass quantities of shit that was going down between harassment by the police, harassment by the public, and assaults. I needed help. And I had hoped that by going to St. John's, that the person who killed Natalie would come and find me with that gun and he could be apprehended. An officer identifying himself as Officer Ryan from Broomfield. I was explaining to him on the telephone about the Boulder police harassment and all the things that I was going through at the hands of the Boulder police hobo hunters. And I did specifically refer to them as hobo hunters. Officer Ryan promised me he would not send the Boulder Police Department, and he promised me that either him or his partner would come and talk to me. That was an outright lie. He lied to me to get me to go back to St. John's, because I was at Lolita's on Pearl Street at the time. I walked back to St. John's, and those officers that he promised me he was not going to send after me showed up. Now, I was already in contact with one of Natalie Marie Bollinger's ex-stepmothers. Her name is Danica Garner. I let this woman know what it is that I was doing and what my intent was, hoping that she would get the word to Tim Beeson or Ted Bollinger, two of Natalie's actual predators, the two actual predators that I exposed for good reason. Because I was being assaulted for things that I didn't do. I was being threatened on the internet and assaulted in real life. But the police refused to take my report about it, and I already knew they would from experience. And when I said that's what they were going to do, I wasn't kidding. Now, on the 6th of January, I was still attempting to try to get evidence. A flip phone that I had from when I was in Virginia. Now, with the police refusing to do their jobs, and Natalie Marie Bollinger getting shot in the head, the first thing they did was start trying to cover the wrongdoing of Officer Michael West, who was the one who refused to take my report on the day that I was given the protection order. Now, because of my understanding of the situation, I predicted that there was a small chance that it was Natalie, an even smaller chance that it was one of her predators coming to get me, and a very large chance that it was the police coming to get me, or the police going to show up. And I had attempted to get her to meet me at the police station so that we could do it right, but she didn't want to. She wanted to cover up her own wrongdoing. And because of a theft by Ken and Leah Plunkett, I didn't have the money to even be there. I did the best that I could. Now, between the 1st and the 5th of January in 2018, with the frequency of the assaults and the attacks against me, an officer should have showed up. An officer should have taken my report. All of the officers that I tried to tell about the assaults blew me off. And I don't have hardly any of their names. Not until those officers showed up on the 6th of January. Officers Lolatai, Herr, and Vanderleest, who promised me that they would take my report, but said that they would only do so if I said that I didn't want to be there and I wanted to die. I gave them what they wanted in exchange for them who told me that I would get to speak with Officer Abel Ramos. They were going to take me somewhere safe where I wouldn't be assaulted. Well, they didn't take me someplace safe. They weren't there to take my report. They were there to feign an attack against the police. Now, I tried for almost 45 minutes to try to get them to take a look at the evidence, which they refused. I did not know how to take screenshots at the time. So I was trying to show them the evidence of the harassment that I was going through, the threats that I was enduring, and these people in real life that were assaulting me were saying the same things and doing the same things that these people on the internet were doing, including Tim Beeson, who threatened to put me and Joseph Moreno in the ground. So while I was trying to show this threat, along with other threats to these officers, they chose to assault me and try to break my wrist. They picked me up off of the ground by my wrist after they initiated the assault. And this is the thing that's real important to note. After they put me in that excruciating pain, I complied. I was still complying. I was fighting against the fight or flight. And you can't fight. You can only fight in that situation. And I have to fight against that response. It's called pain compliance. As we were going through the door, they weren't putting me in enough pain. So they lifted my wrist above my back and twisted it sideways in the cuffs, where it stayed for 30 minutes until I got to the jail, where they said that I could make a report against the officers who assaulted me. And they refused to let me know who it was that assaulted me. They refused to take pictures of my injuries. They refused me medical service. They charged me with assault against an officer, claimed that I tried to bite them. I want you to count how many teeth I have in my head. 0. The answer is 0. I was yelling at them because they were hurting me. They attempted to harm my leg. They were attempting to get a programmed response that is a natural programmed response, fight or flight. They wanted me to fight back so that they could feign an assault against them. When they lifted me off of the ground, I brought my legs up so that I could use my body weight to attempt to get my feet to touch the ground again. I also grabbed a hold of the only thing I could grab a hold of to try to prevent my wrist from being broken, which is the wrist or arm of one of the officers who was attempting to break my wrist. They painted me on the media and across social media as somebody who is violent and assaults cops. I was scared. They also knew that I was autistic. Officers across the board coordinated with the Bollingers, who are known criminals and known drug addicts, to attempt to frame me on multiple occasions. But they weren't able to do it. They were, however, able to get the public to do their dirty work, to destroy my name in public even more so than they already had, sending me into a severe panic attack that to this day I am still having. It shuts me down. I need a safe environment so that I can show this evidence, so that I can gather this evidence. Instead, I've bounced from place to place to place. I should have been put in protective custody on the 29th of December of 2017. Protective custody. Natalie Bollinger's family are 1%ers. This is the 1% of bikers who are the criminal element. And although Ted Bollinger is a low man on the totem pole, he is still on the totem pole. He is still a part of a criminal organization. He used to sell drugs out of the back of his barber shop in Boulder, Colorado. He had his little girls selling drugs in Boulder, Colorado. And I attempted to show that to police, who did not care. Ever since, I have been in a constant state of panic, being threatened and harassed by Natalie's family and their friends. And I can prove that her family and friends are the ones who are doing it. Like Dalton Crawford, who drove with Alicia Bollinger to Boulder, Colorado. I have screenshots of her posting it with his name in one of these Natalie Bollinger groups. Dalton Crawford threatened to kill me. Also, a former boyfriend of Natalie Bollinger's, who I can verify personally was a boyfriend of Natalie Bollinger. She had 2 boyfriends at the time of her death and was messing around with a 3rd one. Why? Because all of these men, alright, I can't say all of them, because Justin Ward may not have had anything to do with heroin. However, Tim Beeson did, and Joy Moreno apparently did. But these officers would not take a look at that evidence. They were too entrenched in somebody that they knew could not defend themselves. Most homeless people are homeless because they don't have actual help. Most of these services cost so much time even to get there. And if you have to walk, even more time. And people don't want to understand this. The things that I spoke out about for years and years, the Boulder police did everything they could to get people to not look at that. Things like Officer Keith Steinman calling our friends bumsicles. I still need a safe place to organize everything before I can present it to the police. I can't just dump it all off because they won't even look at it. They won't do an investigation because I don't live in a house. Many of the people who could come forward and speak out are homeless. They're afraid to do so. Many others live in Boulder County, so they have to be afraid of retaliation by the police. Police across the state of Colorado took part in painting me as a bad guy and refusing to do their jobs. But they also did so in Nebraska and have done everything in their power to try to frame me as a criminal and as a crazy person, so that it makes it okay that they did not do their jobs, so that it justifies their assault against me. Meanwhile, there's people like Karamia, who didn't want to find out the situation. She was too busy playing head games, too busy playing meddler. And I have evidence of this as well. I have been forced into a severe panic attack and an often autistic meltdown. I am not safe to drive this vehicle. A lot of people have invested money in getting me from place to place to place, trying to find a safe environment. Meanwhile, there isn't one. I had to rely on people with a history of lying to me to try to make themselves feel better about the terrible things that they did, because they don't want the world to know what they did. Candace Bondurant, or Candace Dale. Well, the first time that she did this stuff to me, she just didn't want me going around Chapel, Nebraska telling people what she did. The second time, when she came back into my life because of Natalie Bollinger's death, well, when she was intimidated by the police, she didn't show that part. She only showed the part where I said a lot of really mean, nasty things. But there's a reason that I showed those mean, nasty things. It's because her actions fucked me. and had it so that I had to go back to an area where I was being assaulted, which ultimately, with her being threatened and Shelly not having a safe place, and these people letting me know that they no longer felt safe because of these internet stalkers, I did attempt to commit suicide. And instead of taking me somewhere in county and allowing me to make a report, which I have been attempting to do every place that I've gone, they've taken away my Natalie's voice bag. Now, I've got conversations with many of the perpetrators and many of the people whose places that I was at that verify many of the things that I said. Like Lana and Amanda keeping my evidence. They felt that because they sent money that I owed them things. At first, they said that it wasn't like that, but once I was there, it was different. Lana expected me to buy Bradley Dollinger's vehicle out of the jail, or out of pawn. She's like, well, why don't you just get Brad's vehicle? I don't need Brad's vehicle. My vehicle has evidence in it. My vehicle has nothing wrong with it. It just needs somebody to show me how to fix the problem with the steering column. That was my 91 Honda. Every officer after that took part in threatening, assaulting, and intimidating me. Every one took part in preventing me from making a report against other officers. And they lied to me, telling me that I had to go to those counties to make those reports. They also, because of the assault, and because of the police actually taking part in threatening many of these people, and I have evidence of that as well, this resulted in a lot of really messed up things that cost me money for being falsely accused, in addition to my disability money being taken and stolen by Ken and Leah. I was in between a rock and a hard spot, and I needed an advocate. Now, Jeff Ritter and Kara Heller were supposed to do that for me. That was supposed to be their jobs. They did not do their jobs. They sat on the line and refused to do their jobs, refused to come forward and refused to make a statement, refused to answer their phones, which ultimately resulted in me not having an advocate. I needed an actual advocate. The Boulder police assault, this is not a new thing to me. They did what they did to prevent the public from looking at my stuff. And they allowed the public to destroy evidence. The police even tampered with evidence. My telephone, the one that I lost, should have been entered into evidence. The police should have sat down with an investigator. Now, if you have a wheelchair and you go to the police station and you want to make a report, you need access to that ramp so you can go in and make a report. If they deny you access to that ramp and assault you when you ask for a ramp, and assault you and take you to the jail and say that you assaulted them, they have lied on a police report, but they have also taken advantage of your disability and your inability to fight back, which is what they did to me. But it's fine because you can't see my disabilities just looking at me like you can somebody in a wheelchair. This slander resulted in hundreds of people being threatened by not just the Bollingers, but also by the public who was lied to. Do the police in Boulder County profile black people? Yes, they do. If they're homeless, or if they look like they might be homeless. But this case needs to be busted wide the fuck open. And I need a safe environment. I should have been in protective custody over a year ago. To this day, I need to be in protective custody so that I can make a statement without being assaulted, threatened, or intimidated by the police in the state of Colorado. It got to the point where the FBI refused to do their jobs. And yes, I'm angry, and yes, At this point, I am paranoid of everyone. Rightfully so. A lot of these people that were going to help me, they're too broke to do so, but they have plenty of time on their hands. You can see this on their Facebook. These things are not acceptable. Homeless people are not considered human beings. Homeless people in Boulder County, they have a racket going on. See, Boulder County Cares will pass out blankets to you until 10 o'clock, sometimes 10:30 at night. However, at 10:30 or 11, depending on where you're at, those blankets become illegal to use. It's illegal for you to use that blanket that was given to you by a program that is paid for by the Boulder County taxpayers. And then another program that is paid for by the Boulder County taxpayers is the police going around and arresting people, giving them tickets that cost over $400 and over 60 hours of community service. And you get trespassing on your record for one night of using that blanket. And you may not even get to sleep. They call it urban camping. There are over 2,000 homeless residents of Boulder County. There are less than 200 beds in Boulder County, and most of those beds go to a program for Path to Home. That means that the Boulder County shelter, out of the 122 beds that they have, 77 of them are for Path to Home. That's people with special rights, women with children, homeless veterans. Many of the homeless in Boulder have jobs. It's just too expensive to live there. Why do they live there? Because there's a homeless community there that was good to them. But that homeless community is gone. The police went out of their way to ignore all of the meth heads as much as they could, including Matty Boa, including Ted Bollinger, and just arresting homeless people for petty offenses until the meth problem was out of control. Then they say, well, we need to go after the homeless because there's a homeless problem of all the methamphetamines in the homeless community, and we need more money to go after these homeless people. Yeah, no, you don't. You need to stop taking away the programs that actually help. And you need to stop wasting money, mass quantities of money, on programs that these homeless people are repeatedly denied, or it takes more resources to go through and jump through the hoops that these services require of you, so that you don't actually get the service by the time it's all said and done, because you can't afford to keep going to these classes 3 to 5 times a week. Probation in Boulder, Colorado is just like anywhere else in Colorado. It's meant for money. So you pay your taxes so that these police can do their jobs, but they don't do their jobs. And then they charge the people that they victimize money before these people ever have a day in court. They have already doled out up to $400 or more. Nobody has that kind of money. And then you guys want to shame people for panhandling. So I didn't panhandle. I worked until I couldn't. That's just part of the situation in Boulder. There's also the missing children in Boulder, and the sex trafficking, and the human trafficking. And yes, what the Boulder County Jail does, what the Boulder Police Department does, is human trafficking. They are trafficking people who are in the worst situations in America, and they are trafficking them for profit and prestige, while calling themselves liberal and progressive and saying that they are a welcoming community. No. They victimize poverty same as everyone else because they don't want to see it. Rich white girls are afraid of homeless people, so they go after homeless people. Pretty white girls make 90% of the decisions nowadays in what laws are passed, who is guilty and who is not. The laws are no longer based on reasoning and common sense. Because common sense tells you that if this person doesn't have the money for a roof over their fucking head for the night, then charging them 60 hours of community service, that's a week and a half of a full-time job for not having a place to sleep for one night. Plus $400 in addition to that, where most of these people who have jobs are getting paid minimum wage. And they have to find time to get this stuff all done and go to meetings to try to comply with unrealistic demands of people who have no money. Yeah, these homeless people are going to choose to be homeless under these conditions. And if you punish them financially, they're going to choose to magically have the money to get out of that situation. Meanwhile, a black man who has a house is racially profiled because he has a color of skin. No, the Boulder police do what they did to this man to all of the homeless. Now, there are homeless people who get away with it, who don't get treated like that. Most of them are female. But females are still victimized by the police. And there are more actual programs that actually help homeless females than there are to help out homeless males or homeless in general. I still can't function. I still need a safe environment. I still need a safe house. And I was promised a safe house by multiple people, including Danica Garner. She said her friend Erica was going to come help me. And she didn't. What Danica was doing was attempting with multiple other people to force me into a severe panic attack where I had to do something desperate. And the police helped. And Shelley helped. And Ted Bollinger helped. And Alicia Bollinger helped. And they were allowed to show evidence that they doctored and manufactured from multiple jurisdictions to prevent me from having an honest court date. Meanwhile, my public pretenders wouldn't look at any of the evidence, even the stuff from those counties. And officers lied in all of those counties. And I still need to be able to have a place where I can photocopy most of this stuff. My computer keeps getting full of evidence. That is how much stuff has gone on. Meanwhile, thousands of people have taken part in Natalie Bollinger groups in slandering my name, picking and choosing little bits and pieces that they can try to twist out of contortion and try to make me look like I was guilty of things that I was not. I was not guilty of stalking. There are very specific criteria for stalking. The Bollingers stalked me, and I was prevented from showing that in court. On multiple occasions. But I'm not black in a house. So there's no Black Lives Matter gonna give a holy goddamn, is there? Fucking hypocrites.